Okay, welcome to the Revit Dynamo tutorial section. I have been asked to record some of the Dynamo tutorials, but basically I have started to look at Dynamo based on my experience on Grasshopper. Maybe I have worked on Grasshopper about 7 years, so I decided to give it a shot and go to Dynamo. So these series of tutorials on Dynamo is going to be experience of I'm experiencing and trying to learn Dynamo on the basics of Grasshopper and how I know Grasshopper works. So I'm going to gradually add to these tutorials. For now, it's going to be 1 or 2 tutorial each week, but in the later we will just add up and make more complex tutorials. It also depends on how the reaction is to these tutorials, because Dynamo is not really fast. As you can see here, if I just switch to the geometry view and let's just zoom in. And this is a simple point attractor. You can see we work in Grasshopper, and if I just choose these points, let me just choose that pen. And if I switch here, you can see that this is also similar to Grasshopper, but I guess that Grasshopper is faster because it doesn't have the family things, and as you can see here, Revit has many things to handle, and so it's going to be a little bit slow on producing geometry, but it's worth it to enter if you're learning parametric design or algorithmic design or parametric architecture. I think it's worth it to also know about Dynamo, so you can actually uh, use it to design architectural things. So I'm going to also have more complicated tutorials. So this is my first attempt on working on Dynamo. So if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, just put it in the comment section, and we'll see how we can do it. Or I'm just going to do a small research on it, so we can go further in Dynamo, or maybe we just make more complex geometries. So first of all, I want to explain how you can work in Dynamo. I've worked on different ways. I looked at many tools. There is you can see the menu here. Basically, this is the Dynamo menu. You can see here the dictionary, display, geometry, and so on. But I guess it's a little bit hard to go into this place. So if you just go to Revit, you can see that this is elements, and then you can see lots and lots of submenus, and I guess that no one's going to learn this because there are too many submenus, and if you just enter that, you can see that it's a little bit complicated. And that's it reminds me of the generative component of Bentley software, and the problem is that it's not a user-friendly way. So the way I thought about this to not make the Dynamo tutorial complicated and you just get used to it, maybe just see that Dynamo is not that scary. It is a little bit slow, but I guess that it's worth it. Okay, so first of all, let's get started with running and launching the Dynamo application. Okay, when you run Autodesk Revit 2019, or it doesn't really matter, there is a little bit of change in the menu. You can see here that there is only models and families here. But I want to start with the massing section. So first we go to the families here, and we can start with a new one or just simply open a family. So I'm going to go to the new section, and perhaps you have to go to the family template, and one of those folders based on the country you are is activated. So I'm going to go to the English, and I'm going to go to conceptual mass. You can also see that there is structural framing, trusses, furniture systems, and so on, but we're now going to stick with the conceptual mass, and that is a mass one. And you can see that this has a simplistic view here. Okay, so it's on the 3D view. You can see this menu, and you can see that you can, if you just drag this, you can rotate here, and you can also use this wheel which can help you to orbit. But I prefer to go for this full navigation wheel here. So it uses orbit, uses pan, and uses zoom at the same time. So I guess that the full wheel is fine. You can also use the Shift W anytime you want to access this, because it's a little bit hard to just rotate in Revit. So I just figured out that using the Shift W key and using that pan and orbit thing, you can just have a similar feeling to the Rhino, because Rhino interface is pretty cool and fast in the 3D modeling world. Okay, so let's just go and start Dynamo. After you install the Dynamo, you can go, okay, I'm going to type it here. I guess you can't type. You can go to dynamobim.org and install that. So let's go to the manage section and use this Dynamo interface. So Dynamo is something similar to Grasshopper for Rhino, and you can see that there are samples here, so you can also use that. But I'm going to try to work on it and give you tutorials so you can learn faster. Okay, so let's just go to a new Dynamo definition, or whatever it's called, and I can just drag this at the corner, make this a little bit bigger, and I prefer to work like this because you can just put the Shift W here and maybe just orbit and do whatever you want. Okay, so the geometry is going to be for this example tutorial is going to be some boxes and point attractors. I guess this is a something a kind of uh, mass modeling or something, so it's not really Revit, but it's going to help you with Dynamo. Okay, so let's just get started. For the Dynamo interface, you can see here that there are two icons here. This is the graph view, which we work on. It's like similar to the Grasshopper, and this is the 3D view. So let's just rotate this. This is a 3D view of what you get, and then you can export that into Revit, similar to the bake command in Grasshopper. Okay, so let's just go back to the node base. And what I want to do is produce a point. So let's just go with XYZ. I guess that's the fastest way you can find the point, because if you just search for point, you can see that there are too many commands which work with points. So I guess that you can also work search for coordinate, but XYZ is fine. And by coordinate, you can see that this is the tool we have produced. And if you see that hand here and you can't click on your component, you can just click on this pan and again click on it again, and that will be fine. Okay, so you can see that this is the point in the 3D modeling world. So you can just switch on here, or you can right click and go to the switch to geometry view. And if I rotate this point, you can see that you can also use the gumball here and also move this if you want to move the point somewhere. So remember, you can also use the gumball whenever you want, and for that you have to have this highlighted. So I'm going to also use that in the future. Okay, so let's go back again. I'm going to double click this. I think that's a bug for here. And what I want to do is to make a array of points here. So what we want to do is to first learn how we can define a series of numbers or a sequence. That was a range in Grasshopper. So let's just do that. There are two set of numbers we can produce in Dynamo. So first is a range. So this is the range one, and this is really similar to the range in Grasshopper. I guess that their names are similar. So if I just give this to the X, you can see that this is producing this. That's a little bit weird. You have to just always switch between these geometry, okay? But you can always see that in Grasshopper and Rhino, so that's a little bit different, and I'm getting used to that. Okay, so as you can see here, I have to double click this, okay? As you can see here, we have a series of points. The range is a start, end, and step. So what we can do is to give it a slider. You can right click here and also search for this slider thing. Okay, the number slider here. The start is a 0 by default. The end is maybe something like 33, just connect that. You can simply connect that. You can see that we can control that by increasing, decreasing that. And by default, Dynamo is similar to Grasshopper by running this at the same time you're changing the numbers. So if you just want to uh, make it a little bit faster, you can go to here and change the automatic to manual and change those numbers and then hit run. So you can see the results after you hit the run command if you want to make it fast, because perhaps Dynamo, and I'm sure that's the reason, Dynamo is going to in the BIM world, building information modeling, and perhaps we don't want to mess with those different families and those types we have there. So if you're running something like this, I guess that an automatic is fine. But if you're going to maybe arraying a set of columns, rotating them, and so on, I guess that's going for a manual. Okay, so now I'm going to use Control C, Control V to put a copy here, or you can also move this and use the Control key to make a copy, okay? So now we need the step, and the step between the start and the end. For this, you can simply use the slider, integer slider, so you can just change that. You can simply click here and see the minimum and the maximum, the step here. So it's a little bit minimal, so you can access that. So let's just give this to the step, and you can see that you can change this and change the step. Okay, so if I want to go from 0 to 18, I have to increase that to have more steps here. Okay, let's just zoom in and see those points here. Let's go back. Okay, so here's the way you can work with range. And if you want to make a series, something similar to the series of Grasshopper, you can also go here. And if you just search for range, okay, I'm going to search for list. And perhaps you have to have, you can see the range here also creates a sequence of numbers in the specific range. And that list create doesn't give you the series way. So the name is sequence. So just search for sequence. Remember that's sequence. So we have range and sequence instead of range and series. So the series is going to be a sequence. The start is 0 and the amount has to be an integer, and then we can just go with the step that is a number. And you can also hover your mouse here and see this list. If you click on this, you can see those numbers that's in the slider here also, and you can see that there's a group like Grasshopper to that. Okay, so you can give that to the X and you can see the results. Let's just go extend that. Okay, and now we can simply just change the step and increase the number here. Okay, and if I give this to the Y, let's just give this to the Y, you can see that this is also similar to Grasshopper. And that's interesting because each of those numbers are going to have an interaction one by one. So it's going to be 0 0, then it's going to be, what's that, 29, 29. So let's just put this to 50, or maybe just 20 so I can explain that. Okay, so it's going to be 20 20, 40 40, 60 60 till the end. So if we want all the possible solutions similar to Grasshopper, you have to use the cross product. You right click on this and go to lacing and use the cross product. So this is also similar to Grasshopper, and you can always have a long list, short list, and a cross product here to produce something similar to Grasshopper. Okay, this is the grid, so let's just move this and go here. You can see those points here. And what we want to do, again, double click here to just have those. And I want to also produce two set of point attractors. So let's just go to XYZ and okay. If you want to click those components, remember you have to click on here. Don't click here because it's going to open the point menu. So let's just put here. I'm going to select this and switch to the 3D preview and move this point attractor a little bit here. So you can see that it has to change. And then if I just switch back, you can see that this has two sliders attached to it. So it's kind of cool. You can just produce a point, move it, and then you have those sliders. And you can see that I can change that slider here by changing the X and the Y. You can also give that to a Z. So let's just have a copy of this, Control C, Control V, and we can also move this a little bit. Again, you can switch back here and move these. Okay, perhaps that's a little bit different because there are points here. I guess I have to just move this out and then switch back. So I just snap to this. Okay, so you can see how restricted it is. And now let's just zoom back. And here we have those point attractors. Okay, so now we have two set of point attractors. We have those grid points by using the sequence, or you can also use that range thing. And now we want to find the distance between these two grids. In Grasshopper, you can simply use the CP point to find the distance between this grid and the attractors as many as you want, 2, 3, or more. But for this example, you can just go with two point attractors. You can go to distance. There's a tool called distance 2 here. So I'm going to use this, or you can just simply search distance 2, okay? And find the distance between the grid of points and with this point attractor. Again, let's just copy this and give the second point attractor here. So it's going to find the distance between the points and the point attractors. And here we have two distances. So we have a point here. Let's just make this a little bit smaller and move that a little bit up. Okay. I want that software to show you, but I guess it does not work on the Dynamo, so I have to install something so I can show you the distance. So this point is going to have two distances, one from this attractor and another one from this attractor. So we have to decide which one is nearer, and this will be the smaller one. So we can simply go here and search for minimum. Okay, and you can see that there's a minimum between two values, returns the lesser of two numbers. That's fine. We can just give this here and have two values. And this is the smaller value, which defines the distance between the grid of points to the attractor, which is near to that. Okay, so now what we want to do, you can make this the last step. I'm going to use a box. So let's just go for a box by length, a centroid, and width and length and height. That's fine. The origin of that can be this point, and the width and height and length, it's 1, and perhaps it's too small. Let's just give this a number. You can also double click here and give this a number. So if I just type 12.5, you have to just end it like this, and you can use that as a number. So if I give this to the width and give this to the length, give this to the height. Okay, just take a little while. Just go back here, you can see that those boxes are created. So let's just switch back. So you can also use this code block, and it's really cool. You can also use a code block, something like this, to produce a sequence. Excuse me, you can produce a range, something like this, 0 to 200 with a step of 10. Okay, that's also similar to a range between 0 to 100 and with a step of 10. And if you want to see it, I just hover on this and click on this, and you can see that I have produced that 0, 10 to 200. So this is the code block you can also produce by double clicking on it. And if you want, you can just search for slider to have that. Okay, so what I want to do is to condition these distances, because these distances are not really what we want. And if we want to give this to the widths, and let's just go back. You can see that this is not really cool. So if you want to disconnect this, you can just simply click on this, click on the end, and just move it off. Okay, and now we want to remap this. Similar to Grasshopper, you can just search for remap, and here we have the remap range. You have to use that. This is a map to number, and that's a map for one value. So just go remap range, and we want to remap this minimum between those two attractors between these two range. So I'm going to give this maybe, let's just give a slider to this. We want to make that X between 1, just move this and use control key to copy this, between 1 and 22. Okay, I don't know why we have to always connect that. Okay, so now we have to give this to the width and give this to the length, and you can also go to here and turn off the preview so we have those things. Okay, let's just go here and zoom in, and you can see that we can produce those boxes with a height of 1. If I want to change those attractors, we can simply just select them and go here and change that. Okay, here we go. You can see that this is affecting those sections. I don't think there's a graph here, but I guess I have to do more research, and in the future tutorials I'm going to talk about this. But for now, you can see how simple it is to produce two set of attractors here, and let's just move this backwards. Okay. So this is the way you can produce an attractor in Dynamo. Now we can also have another one. Let's just copy this and give it for the Z direction. Okay, so if I just give this to the height, and I know it's going to take a while, I'm going to put that into manual, just increase that, and then run it. And now we can see that. Okay, again, change that and run it. And here we go. So let's just decrease that to maybe 12. I don't know, that's better, I think. And run it. Again, I'm just going to put that automatic and go back in the 3D view, and here we go. So this is the way you can do this and produce that in Dynamo. And if you just open into, let's just go back here. If you open this, you can see that this is in Revit, and you can see that, and if you change this, you will have that. You can also go back here and use something called import geometry, I guess, import by geometry, and this will just help you import instance by geometry to import that into your Revit. Okay, so I'm going to close this. I'm also going to delete this. This is going to be produced into the Revit interface. Let's just delete this. Okay, so you can see that when I put that back on, you will have that into Revit. Let's just go down and show you in Revit so you can see that the results are going to be produced in Revit. Okay, so this was the first tutorial of, and you can see that you can have access to that into Revit, and you can also search and have rotation. So let's just see that from right and from back and from top. So you can see that this is really simple, and you can have access that in Revit also. Thank you for watching, and comment on this video. What do you think about Dynamo? If you have experience in Dynamo, and I guess you all have, I'm not an expert in Dynamo, and I guess there are many people who have worked in Dynamo for many years. I also want to hear your opinion about this. What do you think about it? And we will also record and have different tutorials for the next week, or if there are users who want more and more, so it's based on the experience we have in the YouTube channel. We will record more videos each week. So for now, this tutorial was the first one. You can work in Dynamo and then just transfer that into Revit. As you can see here, let's just go back. Okay. and I guess that's my software running. And you can always save that as a file and always open that. So this is the first tutorial, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to our channel. And you can also watch something that is related to this video, that corner, and see you next time.